this shows off. Well, not this shows off, but um, I had a question or two a while ago about how to integrate something that's completely different than the main character blueprint or the um, that comes with the toolkit and how to get that working. Either from something that they've made or something that they've bought off the marketplace. Um, Me, for instance, I have been interested in the Locomotion blueprint for a while and wanted to see how hard it would be to implement into the system. Um, I got it added in within like a few hours. There was a few things I had to tweak. I'm gonna go over those and show you what I had to change, so you'll be able to make that. But I pretty much got his movement in. Ignore the weapon that's mounted on the floor because I don't have any. I don't have my mounting slots added to the skeleton. I've also got it to work with the NPCs as well, not just the main character, including everything that you need for the stop and things like that. Um, I've also have it to where I can go in, lock onto a monster if I can get close enough. There we go. So I'm locked on, and right now locking on sends me into the other walking state, and I can unlock to pretty much switch back to the other walking state. Uh, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to show you the changes that I've done to be able to get this implemented in. Um, First things first, I had to pretty much replace my example character with the proper character information as well as the animation blueprint that comes with that pack. So if we go down to Mika, come on, and her actor data, I had to change her actor data over to being the SK mannequin that comes with that pack. Technically, I should just disable the morph list since there are no morphs for this character. And then come down here to the class. And all I did was set the class animation blueprint to the one that comes with it. The other part of that is to come over to the actual character blueprint. And what I did with this is the character blueprint has all the information that it needs for operating that character in general specifically. But what I needed to do is also integrate with the RPG Engine toolkit, and there are plenty, well, not plenty, there are a plethora of checks for the actual character being a PC hero. So the first thing I did was come up here and and reparented the blueprint to the actual PC hero. If I can find it. So pretty much reparented to the PC hero, hit accept, and then as you can see up here, my parent class is now set to the PC hero. And what that allows us to do is to be treated as that same object with all the callbacks that are normally used in the system be attached to this same but different character blueprint. So one other thing that I changed is up here in the project. If we go down to our mode, you probably also should change the regular mode that's back inside of the actual plugin itself, but I've been playing with this for right now until I got everything working. But your default pawn class, you want to change to that same parented blueprint. So that way it will use this by default for all of its character creation types. And note, I've only done this with the single player. I'm fairly certain there's one more drop down somewhere in the place where I create the AI characters or the AI PC characters, where I would have to still set the blueprint type that it's going to create to be a ALS character BP instead of the PC hero. But that's still a slight change. I'm probably going to do that sometime tomorrow to make sure everything is working. And after I made that change, when I played it, I pretty much saw that it was doing the animation calculations for both this character and the PC hero. Since the PC hero information is in C++, I had to go to C++ and make a few modifications for this to work. First modification, inside of AI character, I had to make a variable that I was going to use to just block specific content that I want to block when I'm parenting the base class. So pretty much this is what I'm using for that disable check. And if I go to the AI character CPP, I also had to comment out all the setup and everything they did with the boom camera, with the follow camera and all of that, because the character from the ALS character BP already has these things in it. So if you try to add duplicate items to that, you're going to get other kind of conflicting objects, well, conflicting issues. So if we go down, inside of every movement check that is bound right here, I've also tried to make sure that we were exiting the binding of this character, but just in case, I also put a return in the handling of the movement for all of these for the basic character, so that way it doesn't do anything to the character from the C++ side of the code. Outside of that, back inside of the PC hero, if I go inside here real quick, inside of every single one of these handlings, I have pretty much put a check which checks for this flag that I made in C++ to pretty much exit out of the actual flow if we didn't want to handle whatever we needed to discard. And for this, pretty much anything that the player controlled in this section for all the inputs, I just wanted to completely wipe it out and not handle it inside of in case I was using the actual base PC hero as a mask type of parented class. So that way all the movements and all the inputs will specifically have to be set in the other class that I'm using to override this main PC hero class. Trying to check the other places, but this also includes, if I go back to the main graph, I put the comments here on what's needed, what do you have to set to true and all that good stuff. I'll cover that in a second. When I come out with the next release, I will have this in here, so that way if you need to mask out the PC hero and parent it to your own custom class and animation blueprint and set it up however you want, you can do that as well. Pretty much I had to skip the lazy cam, so there's a check in there to skip everything that's in there. I kept the check in water and physics, so it can swim, but right now if it falls in water it won't be able to swim, but it will still float in probably like a walking state. And pretty much right here where we handle the sprint, I had to disable that as well. Also disable the ragdoll because that character system actually has a decent working character ragdoll that I really wanted to use for especially like deaths and whatever may happen to where I can kill the character, and it just works. With what I tried before, mine was horrible, but this is the one they have in there is pretty awesome. So I wanted to use that, so I pretty much blocked off on the inside of here that operation. Outside of that, I think that's the majority of everything. So it disables all the inputs and lets everything else drive itself, which is pretty much interfacing with the system, from detecting death to changing the battle screens based on your attack mode. I mean, the attack mode still comes in here and checks it to see if there's an enemy near, and then automatically switch. So all that stuff you want to still happen, but also use your other system. So back in the main character blueprint, I had to go in the class defaults and go down here to the character information. In the modular character, I probably should have put it in a different place, but it doesn't matter. And I made sure that this was checked to make sure that, hey, everything that's in your child, I want to completely disable and ignore all input checks that I have over there, because I'm going to redrive everything that I need for my character into this system. So after doing that, for the most part, I got all my movements over here and everything worked. The only thing that didn't work is the fact that it's not utilizing any of the callbacks that's needed to the RPG system, because this one takes over the whole entire event tick, and I don't have anything that controls like that stops the movement when you go into an event, or that enables the lock-on feature when you get in a fight and things like that. So these are the things I had to do to actually integrate the system portion of whatever was left. So first things first, I had to enable the parent tick call, which allows me to call back to the PC Heroes tick so it can process all the automatic checks that it does for the object in general. On top of that, I had to make sure that things like movement and jump and things like that were blocked. We're only allowed in certain states. So right here I have a check to see if I'm in interaction mode, even though I add battle mode in here as well. But if we're in the game state, I allow one state. If we're in battle mode, I allow the other. If not, then we're not in a state where we can do anything to the character. So I only go into the get velocity if these two are true. And this is what controls the character moving, rotating, all that kind of stuff. So if we're not doing any of that, then we want to make sure that, if I can get back, we want to make sure that our movement input, speed, and all that is 0. So that way when you start an event, your character's movement is halted and everything stops. Let's see. I pretty much had to... Oh, that's one important thing. For the actual inputs, I went to the Locomotion project and exported the input settings and inputted the input settings INI file into this project. We pretty much eradicated everything that I put in there for the controls by default, so that way it would naturally map directly to this character that I was bringing in. So that way I could do the walk, I could do the sprint, things like that. It broke some stuff in the control handling that I had over on the character side, but it was mostly the two inputs that were needed for moving the character forward and backwards and things like that, of which I just remapped to this one since it was pretty much the same callback but a different name. That way that would clear the error when I tried to compile and it couldn't find the original binding functions that I set up here before. I of course and went through and deleted all the bindings that I didn't need. So the little left, right, up, down settings he had for the controllers, I got rid of those because I didn't need to dynamically change the locomotion. I'm going to do that based on code logic, of which also I went and disabled his debug strings that was here. It was on the third pin. Completely removed that since I didn't need any of that on screen. Over in Jump, this is just also based on what I needed. If I'm in the game screen, that's where I can check for player interaction. If you have to interact with an NPC or something like that, I put that flow here to make sure I did the callback to start interaction check, which was a function that I collapsed. And pretty much this is the section pulled directly from the the face button. So if you go to the face button, I had code here that just purely did a check to see if we were in a state where we can interact with something, and if we could, then do all this crap in here to start the actual interaction for an event or a treasure chest, whatever it may be. And I just collapsed that into a function so I could easily call that from the other system when I wanted to process that. So that's what start interaction check does. Remove this stop. Same thing with is interactive available. There was another piece of code that was together right before that checked to see, hey, should we be interacting with anything? If so, return the result of that check. Lost my place. There we go. So pretty much if none of that went through, then I did his exact jump code and everything. Left all that the same, so that way everything will still operate like the original object is supposed to operate. All of this is the same. Didn't touch that. Character movement settings, definitely didn't touch any of this. There is one more spot that I am missing. Oh, I had to add a check dead state that would enable and disable the ragdoll, if I'm dead or not. This dead state function is already there in the main PC Hero. I'm just calling it through this main class to be able to activate and deactivate the dead character. I don't know why I can't talk today, but I can't talk. Let's see. There is one more check in here that I'm missing. Find references. That's for the jump. Here we go. Okay, for some reason it was in set max walk, but this is where they usually handle the button for walking. And I know what I had was, if I was in battle mode, I could lock on to a character, and for me, when I locked on, I wanted to make sure that the character locked on to the enemy instead of doing a walking, it would be able to enable and disable the lock feature, which would change the locomotion to the nice strafing animation that they had, so I can go in and blend in my own animations or dodge when I'm in that state. So I added that here to make sure that if I'm in the regular mode, then I can walk. If not, then I can come in and lock and unlock my character, pretty much. I do believe that's it. I'm trying to check through my other functions if I remember changing anything else. The lock still does what it's supposed to do. Oh, I had to make changes in the actual animation as well. So for NPCs, the way I had it set up in my other animation graph is when you go through, you can process things for that actual main character. But the thing with NPCs is they may not be that same character type. But I still wanted them to get the ability to use these animation states. So what I did was, if I set an NPC to this character blueprint, it's going to fail this check because NPCs are not PC heroes, and they're also not this. Since I created this blueprint to be an actual hero, NPCs are not that type. So I took his information that he did from the set variables and tried to find a way to get that same information but for a generic AI character. And luckily that worked as is. So here, if I fail the check for the ALS character, I'm going to come down here, make sure that my pun is still valid. Probably don't have to do that. But I casted it to a character and went in to do these mini checks that he does for all of these different variables. Most of them I had to leave blank because there's nothing that generically uses those. Plus, I might not have to use things like ragdoll or turn in place for an actual NPC, since I don't really care that much about their feel or smoothness. So I just left it as is. So I got the capsule velocity using the same thing that he used back in his original code, except for instead of doing the checks in the character, I did the checks for the floor and all that in the actual animation blueprint, which I thought may be a little bit processing heavy, but it didn't seem that bad. But this is pretty much the exact thing that he does to set these certain variables. I just added GEN in front of them, so I know that was what we generated inside of the animation blueprint. But it's the last velocity rotation, the speed that is moving, as well as these other two variables that they set in the main blueprint. And I just ported that over to the animation blueprint to make sure that I can get those variables set. And pretty much these are just the same is falling callbacks that it's using in general. I just collapsed that. Same thing for the movement check. I copied that from there and just created a macro to get that. Let me go back in here. Ragdoll said that the fall, same thing for jumped, since NPCs don't jump. For the control rotation, I just used the character's rotation. The velocity I got from that previous function above. For his speed, I used his current forward velocity to drive that, as well as what was calculated in the function above for air velocity, if that's even needed, as well as the character movement vector, which is just going to be forward according to whichever way the character is rotated. And everything else is just left to its default. So the state, I had to make sure that that was the basic locomotion state to make sure that there are no weird strafing NPCs or anything like that. But that worked pretty well. I just had to make sure that I called the rest of this, which uses the calculated information that's gotten from this to set certain variables within the rest of his system. I had to change animation offset in the regular character, generic character section to make sure that it wasn't using BP. My brain cut off, sorry. I can't remember what the name of it is real quick. Where's animation offset? Yes, because in the original one they were using this, which got the player input motion, but since it's an NPC and you don't have any of that, I had to just pretty much make my own version of this using the forward vector of the actual NPC. And that worked pretty well to set the animation offset. Technically it makes it to where it's going to constantly look forward, but I may change this character to be an actual AI character so I can code in a variable for look at target, so that way I can calculate the forward vector of wherever the character is, so that way when you interact with the character, with the NPC, it can look at you instead of always looking forward. And that's one thing I just wanted in general, and I'm glad it was in this system because I wanted to make something like that, but like everyone says, time is money. So it's in this toolkit. I mean, it's in this plugin. So use what I can use to get ahead in my creation. Trying to think if there's anything else. I got that. Then that's everything in the animation blueprint side. The last thing I can think of is for the actual no, never mind. I do believe that's all that I had to change for that. Oh, I had to go through and for the NPCs. That's right, I did have to do one thing for them. Which isn't much. You just have to make a NPC template. Like right here I have a female template which is used inside the NPC to generate characters or whatever. Since I don't have anything to generate for a mannequin, it's just the mannequin in here, which has all this information about what the base scale of the mannequin is, how to flux the animation, but I have it linked to the actual ALS animation blueprint in here, as well as the main character that's going to use that. And then when you drag out a NPC over here, you can just change the template information that it's using to generate a character from the female to the ALS template, and then it can generate a mannequin using that information. And that's pretty much all I had to change for that. And then, apply all your events or whatever you wanted to do after that. And once that is done, especially the animation blueprint changes, once that is done, you should see your NPC walk around. If you have it set to wandering mode, you should be able to see it walk around normally using the ALS animations. So even if it's walking, I can get it to stop, look at me. It adjusts its walk accordingly. I'm like, everything just works just like I wanted it to work. And I can use all my things that I wanted to for this actual character to work. And I'm about to show off if I can, quickly show off my death to show the ragdoll. And this is a monster I'm currently working on. He's not supposed to be as big, but I kind of like it that big. So if I lock on now, you can see me change states. I can look up at them. Eventually I'll have a left and right dodge. I can attack when I get that far. And then soon I should be dying. I should ragdoll, and everything else works like normal. So hopefully that helps a lot of people. Just doing these little things, I'm going around and learning a lot of things that could help make certain things in this toolkit a little bit more modular, a little bit more accessible for some people that's trying to make their own changes. As I try to go through and experiment with other things that I'm buying from the marketplace or merging in and trying to make other stuff work logically for my game, I'll make updates and changes, and hopefully it'll help those that are developing to be able to easily merge in, their own ideas of what they want to do with the toolkit. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have a good one.